Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. I am happy to be joined today by Coach Ozzie White of Graceland University. Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here, Matt.
Great. Well, let's jump right in and talk a little bit about how you do your recruiting and that kind of thing. When do you usually start hearing from players? When do you start seeing players? What year in high school are they?
It depends. Currently on our list, of course, we are chasing 2022 players, but we are looking at 23s, 24s, 25s.
Wow.
I think the beauty of the longevity of recruitment is relationships. And if we can get in early with a student athlete, it means that we have multiple points of contact. It means that we can watch them a number of times. It means that we can develop a friendship, which means trust. And that's really important in the recruiting process. I love to meet the family. I love to get to know mom and dad, siblings, the dog even. I like to know about the person first, the student second, and the footballer third. So if we get some longevity to the recruitment process, that's great for us. If we've also signed players where we've known for about 3 weeks, so it's all over the place. And I think typically the NAIA, we have to wait until the D1 programs burst the bubble or blow up the dreams, and then we step in and say, "Hey, we're a great alternative."
Yeah, for sure. Well, how many inbound contacts do you think you get in an average week?
Well, I get about 120 emails a day. So an awful lot of international. Our roster is very diverse. We represent about 12 different countries, 11 different US states. So we are recruiting from all over the world. So when I talk about relationships and trying to get to know families and things, we're also doing that not only in person, but we're doing that via WhatsApp and Zoom and video calls. So there's an awful lot, I think, that goes into our recruiting because we really want the right characteristics. We want the right characteristics, not characters, if you understand the subtle difference.
Sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about that then. If both on and off the field things, I mean, you mentioned your hierarchy there of the footballer was really third. But what more specifically in terms of attributes, both on and off the field, what kind of makes up an ideal player in your mind?
So we currently have 46 players rostered. Our full average GPA was 3.47. So we take the academics seriously. The acronym student athlete is student first. So we're serious about our academics. We need people who have good GPAs and are internally motivated. I'm not a babysitter. I don't want to knock on your dorm room door at 8 a.m. and say, get out of bed, make your bed, go to class, have breakfast. I need people who can do those things, want to do those things, are motivated and passionate about those things. And I find that when people generally succeed academically, then they've got their life in order in terms of their discipline, in terms of their habits. We don't want party people. We don't want drama queens. So we want people who are reasonable and have the potential to go on and be the greatest adult that they can be. We can all play football for a short period of time, but we have to be a great person for the rest of our life. So they're the kinds of people that we're looking for in terms of we want people who want to be successful, that, we'll help them map out what the future looks like, but we want them to understand that they do have a future and it's up to them to take a grip and really be in control of what they do in terms of their habits.
Makes sense. Well, if a recruit, finds out about your school and reaches out, what are some of the things you like to see in that first communication from a prospect?
First of all, can they have a conversation? There are too many kids these days who every second word is like.
So,
you
so
know,
I see you've met my daughter. No, I'm just
yes. So, I need to be able to have a conversation. I need that person to be engaged. If it's personal, let's have some eye contact. And I think really importantly, when I get communication and it says, Coach Ozzie, I enjoyed watching a couple of your games last season on live stream. Hey, go Yellow Jackets, versus, hey, Coach Smith, my name is, and how much scholarship can you give me? So, I get those a lot. I got one this week and I was called Coach Dodson. I don't even know where that came from.
It's a bad mail merge, evidently.
Yes. Copy and paste didn't work on that one.
No, it makes perfect sense. Well, what about communication with club coaches? Do you check in with them on recruits? Do you hear from club coaches pitching you players?
Yeah, periodically. My life prior to being a college coach at Graceland was director of coaching at Sporting Iowa and various other Midwest clubs. So got a good network of friends and colleagues across the country, across the world. And yeah, a number of people do reach out and I reach out to them. So it's great having a network of coaches and friends where you can just check in with somebody, because I think I'm not necessarily going to base my decision on a recommendation from a coach, but at the same time, it really helps.
Yeah, for sure. Well, in terms of getting out and about recruiting, what are some of the key tournaments that you like to attend? Do you go to local high school games? Is there something that's more, your focus when it comes to going and watching players?
Yeah, I think I'm across the board because we have such a diverse roster. I'm all over the place, but I really want some ingredients from the Midwest. I really want some Iowa players. I really want some Kansas City players. I think it's important to have those local roots. So I'm attending a lot of the Kansas City and Des Moines events, but I'm also attending some of the bigger ones in Las Vegas, in Phoenix, in California. And when normal travel is allowed, I'm also attending some events in Europe as well. Okay.
Well, I know you mentioned you have, a good bit of international flavor on your roster. What about transfers, junior college players, walk-ons? How do they kind of fit into the mix of your recruiting?
So Graceland is a live on campus university. So dealing with transfers is sometimes a little bit more difficult because our starting point is $10,000. That's room and board. And there's two reasons people go to JUCO, really, in my opinion. One is grades and one is money, and only one of those can change. So when it comes to seeking transfers, and you tell them that the starting point is $10,000, that's more than they're paying to go to JUCO in a lot of cases. So that becomes a harder sell. We do have a limited number of exemptions for transfers. So I have found that our transfer market has really dried up because of our housing policies. I fought those, but I can't change them. It's a frustration for me because I would love to bring in some 21-year-olds to help with our kids coming out of high school. It would make us a more mature team, but here's my sole criticism of my institution is our housing policy is, when it comes to transfers, is not conducive to us being in the transfer market. In terms of walk-ons, we don't necessarily get a lot of walk-ons. I don't know if that's down to the size of our school or location, but typically if there's an interest, then we follow up with those interests. Our admissions department has a tiered process where they would tier a student 1, 2, or 3 in terms of level of interest from the coach. And I continually tell them, if you get an inquiry, then you tier everybody number one, because I'm going to reach out to that person and build a relationship. There's no such thing for me as a tier 3 where I'm just letting somebody else or an admissions counselor deal with that student athlete. So for us, for me, our program, everybody who shows an interest in us is a tier 1 recruit, and I will spend considerable amount of personal time with that person.
Oh, that's great. You mentioned the kind of that 10K threshold, as a starting point. So you're in AIA, you do have some athletic money to be able to give out. You've got 46, you said, kind of on your roster between a first team and a reserve team, right? So
Yep.
how does the academic money and athletic money kind of all fit together? What's a kind of a student, an average player going to be looking at coming in the door?
So we can stack scholarships, and I think our academic scholarships are generous for a good student. We're talking, first of all, tuition is about 32. So when you look at the room and board, it's about 42 all in. A little bit more for an international because of the insurance. So for a good student, the kind of students that we're looking at, we're somewhere between 12 and a half and 16 and a half academically. And then we can put some money on top of that. So for a good player, we're talking about 15, 16 out of pocket. For a reserve player, we may be talking 18, 20 out of pocket.
All right.
And that's not including loans.
Sure. Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Well, let's talk, more about your school. You talked about the on-campus living part, but I can go online, I can click around the website and learn all about Graceland, but what are some of the things that you think are, just awesome, kind of set your school apart that I'm not going to find on the website?
First of all, we're an hour south of Des Moines, hour and a half north of Kansas City. Small, rural, safe community. We surrounded by rolling hills, southern Iowa, 2 Amish communities, local. So a little bit different. I often say to recruits, well, how much time do you spend in the bars and restaurants when you're 17 and 18 anyway? Well, not a whole lot, coach. Well, that's good because we don't have those. We're an hour from the nearest mall. We're 20 minutes from a Walmart, and believe it or not, a highlight sometimes is getting 3 or 4 teammates together, hopping in a car and going on a trip to Walmart and having dinner in another small town. But that's team bonding, that's chemistry.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that the slogan that Graceland University uses is the power of together, and what that encompasses is the sense of community. My players, because we are diverse, because we are from all over, of course, we don't have any Lamoni-based players in our team. So everybody in our team is from somewhere else. So they call it the family away from family. And that's the closeness, the friendships, all of those things really count. And I'm a big believer that you can learn on the pitch, you can learn in the classroom. But if you have teammates who are from different countries, different states, different cultures, languages, religions, food, then you learn something new from your teammates every day. And I think that's, for me, is the greatest pulling power for us is, okay, yeah, we need to be competitive. We need to have a good education. We need to have good facilities, but it's our spirit that embodies who we really are. And I think that if somebody were to visit, if somebody were to speak with some of our players, that comes across in leaps and bounds, that we're close-knit. We are diverse, but we're close-knit, and we are family away from family.
No, that's great. You mentioned your team's got a really solid GPA. So how do your students kind of balance their academic and sport commitments? What kind of support systems are there on campus, et cetera?
So first of all, we give them consistency. I'm a big believer in a 3-dimensional college experience. And what I mean by that is it can't just be classroom football, classroom football. There has to be something else in their lives. And because we are a small university and we are in a small town, we're cognizant of the fact that we don't have malls and bars and restaurants. So campus life is very active, very busy. We have about 80 different clubs on campus, ranging from international club to book club to Black Student Union. We even have a soccer player a few years ago formed a lettuce club. And the lettuce club meet twice a year. And whoever eats a full head of lettuce the quickest is the next president. So we're cognizant of the fact that we need to put activities on. And I'm also cognizant of the fact that the student athletes need to have the time and the ability to participate in campus life. So consistency is key. We train at 4 o'clock every day. And what that does is allow them to be finished with training and finished with showering and dinner, so that they have the whole evening ahead of them for combining study groups and campus activities. So we encourage all of our players to be a part of something else, whether it's theater or choir or student government or leadership or peer mentors. So we have a lot of those things in place in terms of, we do have peer mentors. We have a buddy program in our program where an upperclassman will take care of an underclassman, show them where to go, show them the ropes, be available for some tutoring. We have a peer mentor scenario, which gives free tutoring to students. We have a resource called the Writing Center, where a professor will oversee free tutoring for students. If a student has an essay to write and they go to the Writing Center will help them develop the essay, edit the essay. They will also contact the professor and say, hey, Johnny just came and we edited the essay. And the professor will automatically give extra marks for using the resources available on campus. We do have a 6-hour-a-week study hall for new students. And that goes for their first year, whether they're a transfer or a freshman. And if after that 12 months that they are above a 3.0, then we drop that requirement. But we feel as though, and those study hall hours are between 8 and 5. So we're actually teaching them to study in business hours versus sitting up at 2 a.m. in the morning, trying to get your work done. Then you're tired, so you miss an 8 a.m. class, and then your problem exacerbates. So we're trying to proactively teach them on the front end how and when to study, how and when to train, and how and when to actually be a college student.
Those are fantastic. Love that. So you kind of mentioned a little bit, but just to get a little more specific, what does a typical non-game day or game day look like during the season from the time they wake up till going to bed?
Depends on the day in terms of, do we have morning training? Because right now we're training 3 times a week at 6 a.m., combining weights with speed and agility. But classes run from 8 to 3. We have another little tradition in our program that you must make your bed, because that's your first achievement of the day. So before you leave your room, you've already achieved something. So classes 8 to 3, training 4 o'clock, 5:15, 5:30 typically. Not a big believer in laboring on the training field. Short, sharp, get it done. Make the sessions competitive, make them sharp. Work hard, learn something, have a bit of fun, knock it on the head. I'm not a big believer in these. I sometimes hear about sessions that go 2 and 3 hours, and I don't know how they do that. So big believer in short and sharp, hour and 15, hour and 30, get the work done, have dinner, and then your evenings to yourself. So typically 8 to 3, training at 4, dinner, evening to yourself, evening to activities.
Okay.
Game day, obviously a little bit different.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. What is your typical radius in terms of travel, both in conference, out of conference? Are there are students going to miss a lot of class because you got to drive to, Montana or something?
So the furthest we have driven, last season we went to Jamestown, North Dakota, in an out of conference. So we played presentation in Jamestown on the road. But we used it as a preseason trip. We took 4 days to do that.
Okay.
And it was a preseason bonding scenario. It was good. Not sure I'd do that every year because the drive home was long. The drive up there, you can break up. The drive back, you just want to get back. So it was long and arduous and tough. In conference, we're anything from an hour, which is Des Moines, Grandview in Des Moines. Furthest is probably Clark, which is Dubuque, or Evangel, which is Springfield, Missouri. So about a 5-hour radius. Okay. And we typically travel with the men when we're in conference, and we always come back. So we don't have any overnights when we're in conference. We always come back, which is tough on students. It's tough on coaches. Sometimes you might leave at 11 or 12 in the morning, and you're not back until 2 or 3 in the morning. And the rule is you must go to your 8 a.m. class.
No,
we'll catch up and sleep at another time.
Yeah, right. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the team and playing and stuff. You mentioned, you got a big roster, but you have a reserve team as well. So if I'm an incoming freshman, should I expect that I'm going to be on the reserve team? Am I competing for first team minutes? What does that kind of look like?
I really believe that if you're good enough, then you're old enough. I don't care how old you are. If you think back to the 1958 World Cup, if the Brazilian coach said, "Well, hey Pele, you're not old enough," we would never have seen a 17-year-old Pele in the World Cup. And we know how that story developed. So, if you're good enough, you're old enough. I really don't have any differentiation between whether you're a senior, whether you're a freshman. If you deserve to play, you'll play. If you need, I'm also, my background is youth development, or player development. So player development is continuous. And the reason that we have a reserve team is to continue the process of player development in a competitive cauldron. There's nothing worse than a kid coming in and, okay, I'm a freshman, I've got to sit on the bench for 2 years, but I have to train every day. That's disturbing to me. It's the most demotivating thing I could think of. We also have situations where, a number 9 needs a goal for her confidence. So, okay, go play with the reserves and play for an hour and see if you can play and score a goal against slightly less pressure or slightly less opposition. Player returning from injury might need some game time. So the reserves is set up for lots of different things, but mainly for the continuation of player development in a competitive environment.
No, I like that. What about your soccer staff as a whole? How many others are there? What is their role? What does that look like?
That's me with a part-time assistant.
Okay.
So that's it. We're bare bones. I'm everything from coach to agony aunt to bottle washer to all of the things that go with being a coach of a small school.
Yeah, I've been there. I've mowed the field before as a head coach. I can sympathize for sure. Well, how would you describe your style of coaching and your team style of play?
Well, I think first and foremost, I'm an educator. I'm solution oriented. So I need the players to understand the who, what, why, where, and when. And I'm not afraid for them to say, but why are we doing this, coach? But what about this, coach? Because I want to develop people with a good football IQ. I want thinkers and movers, not just movers. So everything that we do has a purpose, and it's related to the game. On a license course many, many years ago, someone said, if it doesn't look like soccer, it's not soccer. And that's stuck with me. So everything that I try and do, you see a lot of, I'm sure were you at the convention here last month?
No, not this one.
Okay. So you've been to conventions,
yeah,
and you've seen all sorts of gadgets, and you've seen all sorts of sessions, and you think, doesn't look like soccer. So for me, it's got to look like the game. It's got to represent the game. I like to coach kind of big, small, big. And what I mean by that is, let's play the game, then let's break it down, then let's go play the game again with a little more knowledge on the topic that we're looking at. In terms of style of play, that I think when you're a college coach and your team changes every year and the opposition changes every year, the key to that is flexibility, tactical flexibility. Can the players adapt to different ways of playing? We play on grass. Most of our opponents play on turf. There's a massive difference. There's a technical difference. There's a speed of play difference. We're in the Midwest, we get all 4 seasons, and sometimes in one day. So can we adapt to the wind or the rain or the snow or whatever, the heat? And then I have to take a look at the strengths of the players who come in each season and say, here's how I think we can exploit our strengths, and here's how I think we can shore up our weaknesses. So I don't necessarily have a certain formation. A lot of student athletes, when we're talking, they say, Coach, what do you play? And it's like, well, I play everything from 4-4-2 to 3 at the back to 5 in midfield to 5 at the back to 1 up front to, all of that depends on what we have and what the opposition has. So what that means is, you may be a central midfielder in your high school team or in your club team as a 16-year-old, but you may be a right back for us, simply because we've seen that you've got the qualities that suit us in our standard and in our conference. Because the Heart of America is undoubtedly one of the best conferences in the country when it comes to competitiveness and standards. So we need certain things in certain places, and so if I were to give you a style, I would probably say something like third man running, where we're playing into a traditional 9, who's holding the ball up. We're trying to play through the midfield into the 9, because what that does is it immediately turns our midfielders to facing where they want to go, and it gets them higher up the pitch. So if the number 9 can hold it up and then bring our midfield into the game, it then gives us the ability to play that third man running, which is up, back, and through, however you want to describe it. So the best pass in the game is a penetrative pass. And I think that it's difficult to play good penetrative passes if your midfield is deep. So we try and get our midfield higher up the pitch, receive the ball from the number 9, and then we play penetrative passes from there, whether it's over the top or through or diagonal. I love to play with wingers, and I love the wingers to get to the byline and cut the ball back. And then I love the midfield to join in and arrive late into the box. I used to watch the days of Brian Robson and Roy Keane for Manchester United, where they would arrive late, and if you arrive late, you're unmarked. So there's some of the tendencies, I would say, that I rely on.
I love it. I love it. My daughter's team had 2 games this weekend. We found a lot of success in that late arrivals and up, back, and through. So I'm right there with you. Well, we're talking we're talking in February. It's off season. What does your non-traditional season, your off season program look like?
We're working really hard right now. We're training 6 a.m. 3 times a week with a strength and conditioning coach. We're doing speed and agility. We're in the weight room. We're playing futsal 3 times a week indoors because of the weather. And then we're trying to go outside on the turf on a Sunday for 2 hours and actually have a training session. So the players are investing quite a bit right now. The last 2 seasons, if you look at our record, our win-loss record has not been the best. There's been a number of reasons and excuses for that. We don't hide behind what that looks like. I will say that this league is so competitive that it's difficult to get a good run of wins when you don't have as many resources as some of the other people in our conference. Central Methodist, for example, are a fantastic team, but he has 12 full rides to give out. We have 0. So they're reasons. And then we also have some excuses in terms of we had some players out. We had some players who couldn't come because of COVID, all of those things. So the players got together early in the year and decided, hey, let's put a off-season program together that is going to make us better and invest for next August. So right now we're training 7 times a week, which is a lot, but it's something that they really want to do. And we've got, we've got cases of the usual flu and colds in the winter. We don't have any COVID cases, but we're consistently getting 36 to 40 out of the 46 at training every day.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right. Well, you've given us a lot to chew on here, but I want to give you one final plug here. What's something that we haven't talked about your school, your program, anything that you want to make sure the people know?
We care. And I think that that's really important for a player and her parents and her family to understand that you are a person. You're not a student ID number. We really care about your welfare. We care about developing you as a person. We care about you succeeding academically. I get a report on a weekly basis regarding absences or concerns from professors. So we're very proactive in the way that we develop people. We do it on the front end, so that we're not always chasing ourselves. Here's an example for you. If we're traveling next Tuesday and tomorrow is Friday, our professors will give our student athletes the work that they will miss on Tuesday. They'll give it to them tomorrow on Friday so that they can complete that work over the weekend and be proactively ahead of the game versus giving it to them next Wednesday when they get back. And I think that's a really important distinction in terms of keeping people on track, being proactive, caring about the person versus just being a student. We have about half our faculty come to every home game. Our president of the university has not missed a women's soccer home game in the last 2 seasons.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I think those things matter. It just shows that we have a great relationship between athletics and academics and faculty and administration. So we're trying to really break down the silos.
No, that's excellent. Well, Coach, I appreciate your time. It was great learning about Graceland. We wish you all the success in the world for the upcoming season, and hopefully we'll continue to develop those players and up those wins for in the fall.
Thanks, Matt. It was a pleasure being on your program.
Thank you.